World, how are you? And welcome to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters. As you can see by my very modest background, it's the holiday season, the Christmas season. So I'm really hoping that in those gifts behind me that there's a nice little present for me and for everybody. So listen, I want to take just a couple of quick seconds before we get started and talk about the holiday season, the Christmas season. I was just listening to the show and how they were talking about the importance of living within your means and just trying to ensure that the holiday season is what is it's about, not about taking, it's about giving. And so let's just talk about that for a second. We live in a world where we're in turmoil. We live in a world where there's controversy. We live in a world where there's pain and hardship. But the importance thing about the holiday season, about Christmas, is it's about where we're supposed to take all this negativity around us and we're supposed to channel it into positive thoughts. And it's difficult. For a lot of people around the world, it's very difficult. Those people who are in war zones and whose families have been killed this season and who just have nothing, have no home. I have friends in Lebanon, I have friends in Ukraine, I have friends all over the world who, in many cases, their homes have been destroyed for reasons that outside their control, and they're living on the streets. And so what do they do? The reality is that the best thing they can do is just to hope and to pray and to understand that things will get better. Only what the darkest nights lead to the brightest days, as they say. So I'm optimistic. 2024 has been a very difficult year globally for millions and millions and millions of people. But I'm optimistic that 2025 will be much better. And what we're going to do in the next show, not today, but on the next show, we're going to have Ben Murray Bruce with us, and we're going to do a year in review, and we're going to make predictions for 2025. But for this year and for today, and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, let's think about the positives. Because no matter how difficult life may be, we all have positives. We all have life. We all have family. We all have our pets. We all have something to be thankful for. And we must all be thankful for that. And for those of us who have the opportunity to help others, let's do it. Because this is the season for giving. Anyway, I just want to talk about that for a second before we get into our next guest, because it's interesting. Our guest is going to be a gentleman whose party, the New Nigerian People's Party, that one of their and their slogan is peace, equity, and progress. It's about peace. And their office happens to be on the Mahatma Gandhi Street, so I find that interesting. So it's all about peace. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. And while we're taking a break, once again, let's all just think about the positives of this Christmas spirit, be positive and be thankful. And then as soon as we're back, we'll speak to our guest and talk about Nigeria and Nigerian politics. Thank you. I'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters, and as you can see, it's the festive Christmas season. Well, those listening on the podcast can't see that, but let me tell you, it's the festive Christmas season, and we're here to be positive today, to talk about very positive and important things around the world. But today we're focusing on Nigeria, and I'm very honored to have with us Ladipo Johnson. Hello, Ladipo. How are you? He is the press, I don't know I would call you the press secretary for the New Nigeria People's Party. That's what we say around the world. So you're the guy, the spokesperson who gives all the infinite wisdom about the party. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Merry Christmas in advance.
Well, great. Well, let's get started. So listen, last week we had Shegan Shonmi on the show, and we were kind of focusing a little bit on what's happening with Nigeria. Listen, Nigeria being soon to be, honestly, one of the largest countries in the world by population. There's a lot of interest in the stability and future of the country. It is a country, those people who live in Nigeria, of course, you want it to be a positive and great and solid and safe country, but definitely the international community understands the importance of ensuring stability there. So the question is, what needs to happen in Nigeria for it to become the country that it needs to be, not only just for Nigerians, but for the world community. So let's talk about you and the party and the current state of.
Um, well, thanks. Nigeria has been for a while a country that has always been almost there, as it were. We feel we're getting it right, and then things happen, and you feel you've gone some 10 steps backwards. We need to be able to have smooth operation of governance, good government. We need to get the people more interested in what government does for them or on their behalf. We need to hold our politicians more accountable. Generally, things need to operate properly. Unfortunately, we are still grappling with high inflation, unemployment, and of course, corruption is the big elephant in the room. And until we are able to get all these things ticking and moving in the right direction, bringing down the insecurity and what have you, then Nigeria will not be the land of milk and honey that the people believe it ought to be. So we all have a role to play in this. The people especially have a role to play in this, and the politicians as well. We need to get things going properly and stop failing at each juncture that we have.
Well, let me ask you this. Listen, I've been doing work in Nigeria for 20 plus years. I have a lot of friends who have been doing work in Nigeria. It's an amazing country in so many ways. And what you talk about is great. I mean, and I hear this in other countries as well, the importance of holding elected officials accountable for corruption. People need to be more involved. People need to be more educated, take a more active role. All of this sounds great, but let me tell you, the question is, how do you make it happen? I mean, in Nigeria specifically. I mean, I know your party has very strong hold in Kano, and it's an up and coming party from the standpoint that I think it has a lot of electoral opportunities. But nationally, how do you bring these changes? How do you hold elected officials accountable? What's your plan?
Yeah, well, for us, we feel that we have a year or two to grow the base of the party. We have to go to the people, talk to them, let them understand. People are suffering at the moment. We have issues, as I said earlier, inflation and different things. Now, we really have to do that, and then try to see if we can bring others on board, other parties as well. We're trying to unify to get people to work together so that we can constitute a proper, constructive opposition to the APC at the center, which will maybe keep them on their toes, let them be accountable to the people. Overall, 2005, 2006, the elections are in 2007. It would seem like they're hoping that things will fall into place. We're willing to work hard and smart. And as I said, we're willing to build like a team round from various parties. I'm not talking not necessarily a merger, but we must work together to try to bring about the positive change we're talking about. And as I said, the people are important here, because if the people do not understand, if they do not participate and remain engaged, then the chances are that even if another party gets into government, you might have the same attitude to governance. So I keep saying, yes, the politicians are important, but the people are more important.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because without the people, there's no election. Without the people, there's no electoral process. The people the people are the sovereign. They are the people in charge, and they have to participate. So motivating them is very critical. But let's talk about this merger that you talk about, to take on the APC. I mean, do you see it? I mean, we have a lot of do you see this merger including the PDP, or would it just be your organizations with other parties, and just look at APC and PDP as being the two big dogs you have to go after, or what is your thoughts on this consolidation or this partnership?
Well, if you look at the way things are at the moment, you see that the PDP has major issues at the moment, because you have a national working committee of the PDP that is against the Governors Forum of the PDP. And I think the National Working Committee, to all intents and purposes, of the PDP is Minister for the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, who is working with the APC. So if we're talking about coming together, we don't know who will be there, we don't know, but likely you will get part of the PDP. It's important that part of the PDP come out, because I think a good percentage of the PDP are disgruntled. They're not happy with the way the party is at the top. And then, of course, you have ourselves there. You have the Labour Party, or the movement, the obedient movement, and we already have different people talking to each other. Now, from the tone of your question, I do realize it's a very difficult thing to achieve. It's not going to be an easy thing. It's a difficult one to achieve, and we'll keep talking, and we'll see what 2026 brings about. It will depend again on the success or failure of the current administration. It's coming to midterm in May 2025. If things don't begin to change positively with the economy and insecurity, etc., flow of foreign investment, then it might be easier pickings for us come 2026 to 2027.
Well, listen, it's impressive. I mean, it is difficult. I mean, as I said, I work around the world, but listen, if you don't try, you won't succeed. The whole thing is that you got to try. And what's impressive is that, there are a lot of people in various countries around the world that have given up. They said, why should I participate? Why should I be involved? It won't make a difference. Corruption is going to happen. But that kind of attitude will lead to the destruction of a country, and that you must have individuals like yourself and your party who continue pushing to bring the balance, to make sure that the people are heard. But let's talk. Where does Peter Obi fit into this in your mind?
Well, he's an important aspect of it all, in the sense that he's one of the voices of the opposition at the moment. Well, unfortunately for him, or whatever the situation is, it doesn't seem things are really cozy and good with the Labour Party. But I maintain that we saw that his movement was even more widespread than the structure of the party. So he might be able to take control again of the Labour Party, if it's possible. If not, I think that if he can keep hold of his movement, then he can have a meaningful contribution, impact in any coming together that there is of opposition parties, or working together rather. So he's an important aspect of it, whichever way you look at it.
Well, the biggest difficult thing that I'm sure you recognize is that all politicians have egos, no matter even if they want to say they don't have egos, they do have egos. And then when you try to merge any political parties, like I've seen this even with it's in France, and I've seen it in other countries as well recently, where their various parties want to get together, but at the end of the day, the standard bearer of each party wants to run things.
Yes.
So how do you do that? How do you choose? And let's talk about, is your standard bearer? Where take the VP slot with Peter Obi, which is an interesting question. But bringing together all of these very strong parties that have a presence and trying to figure out who is going to lead is going to be, I think, one of the most difficult things. But do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, like, where does your standard bearer fit into all this?
Yes, I've always maintained that if you say you really want to improve the lot of the average Nigerian citizen, then as a politician, you must be willing to give and take, as it were. So I believe that, and then the sentiments that we had in the country in 2022, 2023 might be different from what we have going forward, or what we would have, say, in 2026, when decisions are going to be taken. So but I know for certain that he realizes the fact that we must do something to salvage what we have at the moment, to try to get things going in a more positive direction. And I am sure that even with Peter Obi, I am sure that if it comes down to it this time, we will be able to work something out. Well, when I say I'm sure, I'm hopeful. I should use the word. I'm hopeful that we will have a working relationship, whichever way, with some of the political leaders around. You might not get all the opposition together on one page, but I think we can get most of them to cooperate with each other, to work together, to give the people, the voiceless, a voice, as it were. As you said earlier, there are egos there, but I believe that people have seen what has happened, and things might change this time around. I hope so.
Well, listen, I hope so as well. I mean, once again, there are egos, but I hope that the common sense will prevail and everyone will recognize that, there always has to be a leader. Somebody has to be in charge. But, by
Yes.
stepping aside, sometimes that means you're a stronger leader than being in front. So listen, we have to take a quick break. So stay with us. Anyway, thanks for being with me around the world with Dane Waters. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thanks. Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters, and it's a celebratory day. It's New Year's Eve. Not New Year's Eve. What am I talking about? It's Christmas Eve. I know it's one of those Eves, but
what we've always maintained is the never Trump move. I'll break it down to the Nigeria, Lagos has become one of the largest exporters of illegal ivory in the world.
Of the third world nation, where your votes will get stolen if you can vote there at all.
oh, we're back again. Hopefully this time we'll be back for good. Anyway, back to Ladipo. So, we talk about Nigeria, excuse me, as a country and political parties. And I guess, one thing, when you go to Nigeria, you have during the political campaign season, you have these giant rallies and you have people coming out. There's always also those issue about paying people to vote and doing all these things. So, fundamentally, how do you think that the political climate and how campaigns are run in Nigeria need to change? You think that there needs to be a fundamental overhaul about how politics operate in Nigeria?
Yes, I believe so, actually. I believe so. And I keep telling people, especially at the grassroots level, we call it, that if you do not contribute to your political party, if you do not pay something, then the party will be run by the money bags, big business, and you will not have a say, and things will continue the way they have been. Way back in 2003, I believe, yeah, well, not 2003, 1998, 99, when we had the beginning of this dispensation, when Obasanjo became president. I came back to Nigeria and I joined the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. And I remember that every meeting we went to, whether it was 50 naira, 100 naira, we had to contribute towards the growth and development of the party. But that has changed. And it's the same thing when you look at society as a whole. Nigerians now feel that, you invite a Nigerian to a party and they feel that when they're leaving the party, you have to give them a gift. It's a funny thing. And you see people who are well-to-do, they have a G-Wagon outside and everything, stretching hands, trying to collect some plastic thing, or you understand. It baffles me. So we have this, the society it's walked in one way or the other, and that permeates into the politics, you see. So there are issues like that. Now I'm digressing. It's the same thing. I was on a radio show, and the anchor said to me that, oh, none of you have believe in an ideology, none of the parties. I said, no, that's wrong. We have our ideology and everything. I said, no, but blah, blah, blah. And then I said to them, I said, well, at the end of the day, let's look at it. Do the voters have something they believe in? Do they have the ideology you're talking about? If you have someone who is heavy on education, healthcare, for instance, then that is what you have in your manifesto. But unfortunately, the people of the country on average, when it comes to, you might have someone who's a professor, but when it comes to voting, when it comes to deciding about your country, they now become ethnic bigots, religious bigots. And so that is why you get the politicians dividing them along ethnic and religious lines. So some of these things just go to show you that we have fundamental problems, not just to do with the politicians, fundamental problems.
Yeah. Well, you have this issue, like it's the old thing, divide and conquer. I mean, at the end of the day, people, politicians say, if we can keep this divided among ethnic lines, whether you're Muslim or Christian or whatever, then you force in political campaigns. A candidate always says there has to be a villain, so you make somebody else the villain, whether it's a Christian or a Muslim, and that's how you bring people together. But this is fundamental flaw in politics. I agree, but this is how people get elected, and as you're seeing in Nigeria, that does not mean it's in the best interest of the country. So I applaud your efforts, I really do, about trying to educate people and trying to change this paradigm. Because listen, I've been in Nigeria enough to see where you're right. Every time somebody leaves a meeting, now listen, they don't come to rallies just because they want to hear it. They expect to get paid when they come to the rally. They expect to leave with something. And these are the kind of things that need to change to help people understand, in my opinion, that giving means you have ownership, which means you have a say in the party. Okay?
Yes.
And instead of being a minion of the party, you're, what I like to say, an owner of the party as well. So that is fundamental. But in Nigeria, it's going to be very difficult, but not impossible. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. Yes. but it's going to be a generational change. Now, in the upcoming election, is your focus? And let me ask you this: you have the presidential, you have the gubernatorial, and then you have the House and the Senate there. Is the priority of the party for the presidency, the governorships, or the House and the Senate? Where are you putting your resources primarily?
Well, we're not there yet, and that's the honest truth. We feel that we have a lot of work to do from 1st of January 2025 in trying to rebrand and reposition, grow the base of the party. When we've done that to a certain extent, then we can look at the weaknesses that remain and the strengths and say to ourselves, it will only make sense if we put our resources here, and if we still have, if for instance, Senator Kwankwojo or anyone else within the party has presidential ambitions, then you start to look at it that, okay, we're weaker here. Is there any possible merger, coming together, marriage that we can, have with some other political group or movement or person who has a following? So I don't think that, back to your question, I don't think we would have proper strategic answers to that until maybe mid-2020, 26, I think. Then we can now take stock of where we're at and then know the way forward for 2027.
Well, listen, as you know, in politics, 2027 is not that far away, really.
It isn't.
Yeah, and and this is what a lot of political parties and others make the mistake of doing, is that they say, "Oh, that's 2 years away. We get plenty of time." No, I mean, there's a lot of work that has to happen now, and I think that in the world, listen, I'm optimistic that there'll be greater peace around the world in 2025, but the reality is, I think that with Russia, China, Iran, United States, others, that I think there'll be greater division. And I think this is where Nigeria is going to be in the crosshairs of it, because, a lot of these superpowers will want to build a stronger base within Africa. And of course, the natural place is going to be Nigeria because of its just size. How do you feel, just out of curiosity, do you see now that there's a greater presence of foreign actors coming into Nigeria, and do you see that is a potential problem?
Well, if well managed or properly managed, it should be a thing of strength for Nigeria with its position, especially in the West African region. One should be able to leverage their attention. If we can put some things in place to ensure that we get inflow of investments, and then look at the partnership. For many years now, the main focus of the Nigerian diplomacy, foreign relations, has been the African region, as it were. But with the play by the Chinese for Africa, they've done a lot of things, broadband, railways, things like that. And the Russians as well, I see that they're becoming more active in the African continent. Then the Western powers, as we say, the European Union, the United States, need to press the reset button and look at their traditional friends in Africa and try to see what could be done. The Commonwealth is weak at the moment. I don't think they're doing anything, but there again, I am biased from the way I'm speaking. I'm sure you know I'm slightly biased about it. I would rather some of my friends try to glorify the Russian and Chinese blocks rather, but I'm not that way inclined. So I feel that we still could do more with the West, and I hope that they do look at Africa properly. One thing I will say, I don't have details, but one thing I will say is that I have become rather skeptical about the role of the IMF, the World Bank in some cases. But look, no one does business and wants to lose. So we in Africa, in Nigeria, Africa as a whole, we have to get our game together, get our act together, and make sure that you don't look for handouts. I don't believe in handouts. I believe that we have the resources, and if Africa were to rise, then we will be a force in the world because we have the natural resources. It's just mismanagement, etc., etc. So, yeah, but I hope that the whole thing is managed properly by the government or the governments of Africa.
Well, listen, you're sadly we have to go here, but you're right. I mean, you know, there's so much if Africa were to get their act together, I mean, they would be a force, a global force to be reckoned with. There's no doubt about that. Once again, it goes back to lots of egos and about the leaders, but you know, we'll have to see what happens. Listen, I really appreciate you being with us today. You know, sadly we're out of time. The show is never long enough. I always talk about that, but thank you, Ladipo, for being on the show. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. And thanks once again for being with me, Dane Waters, with Around the World with Dane Waters. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.